Welcome to the Doctors on Social Media podcast. Welcome to SoMeDocs. I'm the founder of this venture, Dr. Donna Coriel, a curious internist turned digital entrepreneur. I run this beautiful community and encourage you all to subscribe, engage, and join us at doctorsonsocialmedia.com. The following is a conversation we had with a professional in healthcare, now available to both watch in video or listen to through audio podcast. We hope it entertains, inspires, and ignites conversation. Don't forget to check out our other unique resources on our website, and of course, share this with your friends. I figured I'd introduce this episode's guest ahead of time so that you know what you are about to listen to, but I'm going to do it to the background of a recent reel that we shared on SoMeDocs. And so if you are watching this, please enjoy the visuals that you see in front of you. Quote from the guest: "My job is to wake up people's grandparents and take their blood." He struggled through rejections and persevered. He discusses fitting in and other things that he does, including becoming program director at the NYU Management Institute. Before we listen to this episode together, I'd like to share the following quote with you, which I hope you'll find relevant. It's by Maya Angelou. Quote, "If you are always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be." I edit it, so I take out all these like extras.
I don't mind. I've been doing media for decades, so
Okay, interesting. So that's interesting to me. I want to hear about it, but can you tell me a little, give me a little background as to the physician in you?
okay. So short. I'll make it short as possible. Didn't decide to go to medical school until I was almost graduated from college. Before that, I wanted to make movies, and here's the thing. I come from a family where nobody went to college. My parents didn't go to college, so they really couldn't help me in any way, shape, or form do the thing that I wanted to do. Like, it's just how do you become a filmmaker? I had no idea, and no one, there was no one to help me. And I was taking film classes, but it wasn't filmmaking classes. It was more like, English
Learning
literature
about films. And where was this?
In SUNY New Paltz in upstate New York.
Okay, interesting.
So I was floundering, and I actually dropped out of college, and had to get a job. So I ended up getting a job at a diagnostic laboratory as a venipuncture technician, and would get up in the morning and go to some of the most beautiful and some of the most horrific nursing homes that you've ever seen. I mean, we're talking, state-of-the-art, beautiful facilities in, high net worth communities. And then we're talking about like abandoned hotels on Long Beach, Long Island, where basically people were warehoused, and you could smell the stool when you walked in the front door. I mean, and my job was to wake up, as I said, then I wake up people's grandparents.
Wow.
And I draw their blood.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, this is interesting and fun. And there's a storytelling component to it. Remember the filmmaking? There's like the whole narrative thing going on. And
Totally.
And I like people. I'm not a science guy, but I really like people.
Right.
So I went back to college and tried to find my way. It took a little while. I had to take a gap year, and a bunch of other stuff happened. But eventually I got accepted at the 15th school after 14 rejected me.
Med school.
Einstein in the Bronx.
Oh, yay. I trained there. So cool. Wow.
So that was the beginning. Now the problem was, because I had 2 years of kind of like struggling. I had a couple of really amazing mentors. I got to medical school as a very, very non-traditional student. I had done a whole bunch of things that no one had ever done before. And particularly in my gap year, I didn't put it on LinkedIn. So in my gap year, I had a mentor. For example, I taught in prison. I taught human sexuality in prison. Wow. With my mentor, who was a professor in the SUNY system, went out for 10 days to St. Louis and spent 10 days with Masters and Johnson in a training program. all things, by the way, that my mentor was like, this, because you're not like, you know, you don't have A, you're not an A student. You
Yeah.
need these other things to make you interesting.
Wow.
And obviously Einstein found me interesting. But I got to medical school with a very different sense of medicine, and instantly was like, I don't fit in here. Like I knew day one I didn't fit in.
Right, right.
And I never intended on becoming a clinician. Never.
Wow.
Although I will tell you now, residency was probably one of the most wonderful and exciting experiences of my life. And
You did do residency also.
I did do residency. So
In what field?
I trained in pediatrics.
Oh, interesting.
At Jacobi and Monty.
Yeah.
And
That's a good program.
but it was a great program. But during my residency, I had an outside life. And you saw an example. We're on the phone because you saw an example of that. My NYU experience, which has a whole other story attached to it. I became the program director of this NYU Management Institute program, which, by the way, my chairman and residency program director were completely supportive of. They were like, go do your thing. However, I will say Michael Cohen, the chairman of PEDS at the time, was like, I'm watching you. I'm going to set the bar for your residency performance a notch higher than everybody else if you think you have time to go do this other stuff.
But can you say what you did so that people who are listening know?
I started a nonprofit organization to do children's media. I did 2 years of the what we call the 2-day MBA, the business program at the NYU Management Institute, and started to network my way into what I thought was going to be the next phase of my career. And I ended up networking I working in the Bronx, I noticed there was a gap between the pediatric community and the early childhood community. We were seeing all these kids from daycare centers. There was this weird gap between us. And I really felt like the daycare centers needed more health-related training. So I discovered that the deputy commissioner for the New York City Health Department, who was responsible for the Bureau of Daycare, was also a Monty, had historical roots to Montefiore. Wow. So I networked my way to him and had a meeting. And I had a written proposal. I handed him my written proposal for training, health-related training for early childhood educators in daycare programs in New York City. And he's like, Stephen, this is a great program. I appreciate all the effort you put into this. He goes, but you are clueless about how government works. He goes, if I wanted to do this, it may happen 5 years from now. Like you don't get it. However, he then goes, however, when you're done with training, give me a call. I'll see if we got a job for you. Wow. And I, in fact, became a year later the medical director for the Bureau of Daycare for the New York City Health Department. So that aspect of my life, the fact that I came with some of those skills, both temperamentally wired. I'm not, obviously I am who I am. It's hard not to figure that out. I will admit I was a little shyer then because I didn't know, and I felt like I was. And this happened to me a couple of times. I would go for an opportunity, and the mainstream traditional medical community would say, you don't have the qualifications, you haven't done the path, you haven't jumped through all the hoops. And I'm like, yeah, but I know, I know how to do this. A great example of that was the program with the NYU Management Institute. I originally pitched to Einstein, and the chairman of medicine. The chairman of medicine reviewed my proposal, said this kid should just go back to the library. He's got a lot of work to do. He's got a lot of learning to do. Totally. By the way, fast forward a year, and he sent Michael Cohen, the chairman of pediatrics, an email saying, "Why is this happening at another institution?"
Of course, that's always how it works.
So I will say the NYU management experience was really the kind of the rate limiting step for my academic. I really wanted to be an academic. I wanted to be a dean. And it really was, because what I realized then was there were expectations within the medical community that I wasn't willing to fulfill, because to me, they were just a matter of respectability, not necessarily
needability.
Right. And I found in the business world that the strength of your idea really was the thing that allowed people to make a decision about whether they were going to work with you or not whether you had done a series of prescribed steps to get to a certain
Right.
place.
Totally.
And so, I mean, so I went to work for the New York City Health Department, and I spent 7 years there. It was, again, one of the most remarkable experiences of my career. I'm so grateful for having done that. I love the fact that the foundation of my professional identity is in public health. It remains such a big part of the way I look at the world and analyze situations. There's things that are coming up in medicine now, social determinants of health. They're not social determinants, they're just determinants. Like, let's not carve that out as a silo. The etiologies of disease include your interaction with your environment. And so there's cultural and social issues that are part of those. But that came to me from the public health perspective. And I was able to do things there and experiment and try with incredible support from the public health leadership at the time. But when it was time for me to go, it also was a slightly entrepreneurial venture. I was the liaison for the New York City Health Department to the Human Resources Administration, particularly the Agency for Child Development. And I noticed there were a lot of medically complex children in the social services foster care system. And I thought, wow, if we could just figure out how to coordinate care for that population, that might work. So I cut back part-time in my public health job, and I spent the other time trying to devise this high-risk children's case management system that at the time nobody knew how to pay for. I have a brochure for this, and it actually uses the word like increases accountability of providers, reduces redundancy, and
Wow.
but no one knew what to. But again, it was a calling card that let me go out and meet people, and it ended up opening the door for me in lots of other places.
Yeah. You're such a testament to networking, to the power of networking.
Yeah, some of it is just a testament to the fact that I'm kind of shameless.
That's what I'm saying. Not even, yeah, I wasn't thinking shameless. I'm thinking of
No, but I mean,
positively.
let's put I shouldn't, maybe shameless is the wrong word. I'm unabashed.
Yes, I like that.
And by the way, it comes down to, think about how this whole thing got started. I'm waking up people's grandparents in nursing homes. So you have to have you have to be able to introduce yourself, and you have to be able to meet
Yes.
people where they are.
Totally. I love that. Yeah.
And so anyway, that was the beginning of what ended up being a very, very non-traditional career. I put at one point I put an ad in Ad Age, Advertising Age newspaper, a situations wanted ad. I got 3 phone calls from including the then chairman and CEO of Scholastic. I ended up doing consulting work for Scholastic. But that approach of putting something out there and letting the world. Now, by the way,
absolutely.
I'm talking about the successful ones. I cannot tell you the
Right.
thousands of ones that got
Of
nothing.
course. That's like the bottom of that iceberg picture that we don't see.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, the other key is you just can't absorb the absorb the rejection.
That's smart. That's great.
It's so like that's other people's. I mean, I'll give you an example. I worked in the public relations business. I worked in writing and storytelling and narrative for some of the largest healthcare companies in the world. And then I worked in medical publishing for a little while. Again, I have submitted over 30 submissions to very well-known peer-reviewed journals, and every single one of them has been rejected.
Wow. Why is that, do you think?
I don't think I know the secret handshake.
Gotcha.
I think there's an academic medicine secret handshake. I think peer review is a biased gatekeeper of ideas. And it's, it basically, if it's back to respectability politics. Do you look like me? Do you sound like me? Do you have my background?
Totally.
And I actually have a piece I wrote recently about gatekeeping and peer review. And it's basically, there's a wonderful quote from the health disparity side, from the racism side of things, which basically says, who gets to tell their story? Who's allowed to tell their story? Totally. And discrimination is not just discrimination, but it's discrimination of ideas and
totally.
and
Wow.
culture and concepts. And
That so hits home. Yeah.
and that this is, it's absolutely true in medicine. Now, again, I'm not. I love my profession. I love
Right.
all of you a
I
lot.
understand, but you're
Um,
raising issues that need to
and
be
I'm
raised.
right, but I'm I'm committed. So my mentor in medical school was Dr. Carlton Chapman. Dr. Chapman had been the founding dean of Dartmouth and retired to become president of the Commonwealth Fund back in the 1980s. And at the time, Commonwealth Fund was really focused on medical education more than the work they're doing now. And I think the evolution is the right one. But then Dr. Chapman retired from the Commonwealth Fund, and his wife Ruth, and I know this because I heard her say it. You can retire, Carlton, but you can't stay home. So Carlton found himself a place at Einstein as the emeritus professor of history of medicine. And through connections, I met Dr. Chapman, and we, despite a 50-year age difference, no joke,
Yeah.
we really
Clicked.
kind of got along, because
Wow.
in his mind, he was still a 24-year-old, mad as hell, not going to take it
Yes.
anymore,
Yes.
guy.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so, that's my role model, which is you have to be relentless
Yes.
with your belief system.
Yes.
And by the way, there's consequences to that. And I've had career consequences to that. I don't have equity in a medical practice to count on it. There's no retirement for me. The financial risks came along with the conceptual, philosophical, tactical risks I took because I like making things. And sometimes medicine doesn't focus on making things. It's, I won't name who, but I worked on one project for almost 8 years with two very, very prominent key opinion leading authors, but at a very large and well-known Eastern academic health system. But talking about it was enough, and studying it and analyzing it, and we produced a lot of stuff, but it was all in the realm of ideas and words. It wasn't
Right.
a thing.
Yeah.
I like to make things. So
Well, there's also not a lot of action in medicine. There needs to be so much, research behind it. And I actually wanted to go back to what you said before because it so hit home about having to sort of be accepted to like know the right handshake. That hits home for me for a reason that you're probably not familiar with if you're not online in the sort of online communities that have now been built.
yeah,
And this
and I'm
is
not, by the
actually,
way.
you're not, right? And this is partly why I do some of what I do and I build some of the communities that I build, is because I was part of communities for so long, these physician created communities just in the last few years that were, I thought, created for the idea makers and for the people that do think out of the box. And I found out that no, they're created for the admin, the person at the top. They started to censor the people that actually came up with the ideas, people like me that actually put money where my mouth is and put action to words, and started to like erase, sort of almost like cancel people like me. And I originally thought it was just me. And so I thought I was doing something wrong. And it really stifles
Right.
you to think that a community, and again, it's one thing to think that like a system's pushing you down. It's another thing to think that your colleagues, and in the end, of course, it's just the one colleague that's the admin, but it still
Right.
feels
Well,
like a whole group is squashing you and you're going, wow, I'm just trying to come up with an idea and no one so it totally hits home. And my point being that I don't think it stops at the systems. I think it continues in the entrepreneurial world and even in communities where we think we're safe and we think we're wanted.
I think that's true. I find myself lately more of a solitary actor than
I
a
believe
group
it.
act.
Can you tell me why?
And well, largely because a friend of mine said to me, he goes, "You're better off presenting to an audience of one that wants to be there than trying to recruit people to be, 100 people to be in the room who
Interesting.
don't want to be there."
Right.
Um,
We're going to take a quick pause here to quickly introduce you to a new podcast that we are putting together. It's actually a series rather than just a podcast, meaning you can watch it visually or listen to the podcast version. It's called Stigmatized. Jay Joshi, MD, knows what it means to be stigmatized. He served a prison sentence despite acting within the medical caregiving norms. He now holds conversations with others about stigmatizing topics that aren't typically discussed. You can watch an episode of SoMeDoc's Conversations with Dr. Joshi. It's called Imprisoned and Stigmatized, a conversation with Dr. Jay Joshi.
So, I even more recently did some very intensive work with a coach around the issue of authenticity and what that meant, and the risks that come with authenticity. And you have to be willing to take those risks. And I think for a lot of people, it's hard. Not that they don't want to, but it's hard because the pressures are coming at you to find ways to fit in. And of course, then there's the economic piece. Like, if your job's on the line and you're expected to perform according to culture, it is really hard. And that's why, by the way, I think so many of fellow physicians have hobbies on the side and they do things, but they don't bring that to the front. And I'll tell you, right. So the coach I work with, we were doing something, and it wasn't an executive coach. This was somebody who was a business coach. And I had gone to him with an idea I wanted help to implement. And in the course of working out the project, it was clear that my motivation to do the thing was different. And once there's this weird, strange model that I use sometimes. It's called the be, do, have model, right? We do in order to get stuff. So we do stuff to get stuff. And then when we don't get what we want, we do harder. But we never take the step back to say, who are we? Why are we doing this thing? And is who we are shaping what we do? And if you take the step back to actually look at the why you're there and what is it that you want from it, you'll do things differently. And that's what happened to me. I thought I wanted to do this thing. It turns out I was trying to achieve something, but the tactic was wrong. So I found a different tactic. And the other tactic allowed me to be more of myself. Including the fact that I did something I never thought I was going to do in a million years. I got a job. I have actually a W-2 salaried employment, which I haven't had in a long time. But I found a tribe of people who are like, yeah, we want you in our tribe.
That's amazing.
So it really made a big difference. That little bit of work.
You know what? And I see and I hear you, and I think you're going to agree with me because of what you're saying. I have come across so many professionals and physicians, especially, that are just doing things that they're just unhappy with. They go to work unhappy, they go to work and they come home dissatisfied. And everyone is, I don't want to say everyone, because that's, too wide of a word, but many people are just so disillusioned with medicine and they're not having a career. They're not in a career that they love. And so that is what worries me, and why I do what I do, is that we need to have these conversations to not only change it, because healthcare needs to be a place where the doctors are happy. Because if the doctor's not happy, then the patient's not happy.
I wrote a book in 2021. There's an entire chapter about that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And we should actually get your book on SoMeDocs. But it's not just that. It's also just in general, right? Like finding something that makes you happy, whether it's a side venture that's going to make your career happy because you've got a family to support, and that's what's going to, at least for now, pay the checks. You should be happy. And, and everyone's always like, the responses are always like, doctors need to stay in medicine. They have to stay in medicine. My response is always yes. Like, I agree. I don't want a world where we don't have doctors, but at the same time, how far are you going to abuse doctors? And maybe abuse is too harsh of a term, but how?
No, that's, by the way, that I'm gonna, when we get off the phone, I'll send you a digital copy of the book. I have it in PDF form, but there's an entire section about this, about how if we expect people to share the work of worry about another human being, we need to give them a level of stability. They can't be worried about themselves, their own security, at the same time we expect them to worry about somebody else. Actually, there's a wonderful book written by 2 Harvard professors about it. It's called Scarcity. If all of a sudden you feel like you're going to lose something, and by the way, this is as true for high net worth individuals as it is for poverty. it's like if you're constantly in the state of unknown, this
Yes.
fear factor,
Yes.
you cannot share the work of
Right.
worry about somebody else's life.
Right.
And it's funny. I saw your piece on the Costco
Yeah.
health. I have a piece coming out in Kevin MD in a couple of weeks called "Bringing Words to a Knife Fight," and it's all about this issue, which is we in healthcare need to start to fight the battle using the same tools that are being used against us. And
100%. I'm always
we
saying
need to
that.
be very
I
aggressive.
agree. I agree with you. And I think that's the problem is a bunch of, and I say this positively, a bunch of softies go into medicine. I mean, we're the compassionate bunch. We're
That's
the
true.
people that
Yes.
want, right? We're the people that don't not only want to help the world heal, but we're the people that are willing to sacrifice our own well-being for so many years and accomplish that. I'm talking, both well-being emotionally and financially, so and physically. So I think that it's, listen, it's not a surprise the way things have turned with, in my opinion, everyone just taking advantage of these softies over the years. And it's time for us to learn entrepreneurial concepts and say enough is enough, like this is it, and I'm not being taken advantage of anymore.
Well, I also think, and I'm going to make a generational comment here, but the system that I went through was dramatically more traditional in terms of training than the system today.
Right.
And I think that I certainly saw it with many of my peers who felt like they needed to defend some of the boundaries of the traditional system.
Right.
Whereas I'm seeing now, millennial physicians, and I can
Right.
say that because I'm a boomer, I'm okay, I'll
Yes.
admit it.
Yeah.
Millennial physicians are far more open. I mean, I see who's on SoMe. I mean, there's
Totally. Yeah.
how many now?
There's, well, on SoMe docs, there's hundreds.
Yeah,
But
okay. So
we have older generation too.
no, but here's the thing. Those of us from the old generation are like, thank you. You're helping me finally be more authentic in the
Totally.
space.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even though you may not be age-related peers, you're psychologically related peers.
Yes. Yes.
And I've had something to say over the years, and I've got a platform I can actually do it. So I have a teenage daughter, and I say her all the time. I'm the oldest Gen X on the planet.
That's awesome. Yeah. No,
X or Z?
that's amazing.
No, Z. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oldest Gen Z on the planet.
Right.
And
I'm sorry for that noise. My gardeners always decide they're not like coming on the same day every week. They always decide to come when I am on. It's almost like they check my calendar somewhere. They say
well, for me it's every Monday. So every Monday,
well, that's different.
Go to a different room in the house. Right. I go to a different room in the house and I take.
I probably should now that, but
it's funny. You definitely caught on the fact that I am not. I mean, it's funny. Am I active on social media? No. Do I blog regularly on Medium? Yes. Do I have a podcast? I do. Yes. I just don't promote it to anybody.
Yeah. That's the problem with us.
So pitch me, Dan.
Yeah. So SoMe, right. We're going to take a short break to watch the preview for Psychodermatology: New Frontiers for Treating Stress-Driven Skin Conditions.
We're going to take a look at the latest in neuroscience and trauma when it comes to skin disease. And then we're going to not only tie all of this together in a treatment approach to support your patients, but you'll have the opportunity to experience this approach firsthand during our time together.
I'll be talking about how to implement interventions of compassion-focused therapy into therapy of dermatological diseases.
We will be discovering the potential effects of adverse childhood events on our neuroimmunobiology and the chronic spontaneous urticaria pathophysiology.
In this lecture, I'm going to talk about how to classify psychodermatological disorders. I'll also briefly talk about some common psychocutaneous disorders and their management approach.
We will talk about how writing our stories can help us heal, and how chronic stress and emotional pain can affect the skin through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine.
I was psyched when I heard that SoMe Docs was putting on a conference all about psychodermatology, and I'm excited to talk to you about how your skin, your gut, and your brain all talk to each other, and how you can do even small things to encourage them to talk more productively.
I first discovered Reiki in 2017, and it completely transformed my life. I'll be giving you very useful, easy, practical tips you can apply in your own practice right away. Plus, energy work is just a lot of fun.
This presentation looks at clinical hypnosis meeting the largest organ of the body and where the magic happens.
You will learn about how play is not a diversion, but an active process of healing for stress-driven skin conditions and more.
I hope you'll join me when I talk about the health benefits of laughter and how you can utilize laughter yoga to reap those benefits in your life.
We are going to understand how psychosocial stressors can really impact our coping mechanisms as adults. And through a specific case, I'm going to walk you through methods that are non-pharmacological.
This talk will explore how discovering, experiencing, cultivating, embracing, celebrating, and sharing joy can lead to improved quality of life, connection, empowerment, and advocacy for yourself and others.
Find this resource under the conferences section of doctorsonsocialmedia.com. First of all, regarding what you said and about SoMeDocs, this is part of why I'm now building a new section in SoMeDocs called Students, and that's where both the pre-meds and the medical students are going to appear in their own directory, and it's going to be in parallel to the MDs, the DOs, the medical doctors, the dentists, the podiatrists. They're going to be in parallel, and then we're going to, as soon as we have those set up, we're going to mix them, because this is how we do advance in healthcare and in medicine, is that we mesh the generations together. Like all we've done all these years is just separate us. The older folks were retiring and saying goodbye, and until then they were sort of in their own little, they were like the gods. But at the end of the day, we need to mix us more. And especially now with social media and with the online world, we could do that on separate parts of the country and still mix together our ideas. So that said,
by the way, just funny say that. So a couple
please.
of years ago, I actually reached out to the head of AMSA, and because I was fascinated by what AMSA was doing. And so you're absolutely right. What happens is kids, medical students join AMSA, and then all of a sudden they're sucked into the training machine.
Yep,
and
exactly.
And they lose that energy and that verve.
Exactly. And that's my problem with some organizations today. First of all, my problem is that we give the money and they do nothing. Secondly, there's a lot of indoctrinate. I mean, I'm not talking about that organization, but others in general. And medicine.
No, if anything, that's the one that doesn't try to. And then
I love that. I love that, because I do see a lot of sort of indoctrination into the traditional, well, this is how we do things. And again, a lot of that works because I am old school too. And medicine's medicine. Medicine's tough. We're dealing with life and death. So there's something you have to do. But there's some things we have to do different. We have to step out of the box. We have to innovate, and we have to open our minds up to things like, okay, a world of social media. Social media in general is bad for our kids, for, people that are negatively influenced, but for communication purposes, it's amazing. So SoMeDocs really was built for many reasons, but the unifying goal is to promote the autonomy of doctors and to by helping us market ourselves collectively in a place that features doctors. So it's in this part, I yap all about SoMeDocs, so I'm actually going to fast forward this part to spare you of the details. You can check out everything we do on SoMeDocs at doctorsonsocialmedia.com.
So what's the value prop to the members? Like, what's really the value? I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I've got like-minded people I'm hanging out with. I'm actually paying to be part of a club.
Right. Yes. Essentially. Yeah. The value prop depends on what you're using us for, right? So the value prop for someone who is a writer who has a blog and is like, I need more eyeballs. The value prop there is that you can easily, in literally 30 seconds, you can upload an article you can submit an article to the magazine, which if it gets accepted, it gets its own fresh spin. So you're getting our visuals, and you're getting our editing, and you're getting our publishing, and then you're getting a circulation not only through social media, but we are really creatively sharing to stories and sharing to reels, and we have a LinkedIn audience and the Twitter. And so you're getting almost like an agent that's working for you. You can be the most famous person in the world, but at the end of the day, to have people cheerlead for you and promote you is just something really special. By the way, you remind me a lot of, do you know who Dr. Louis Profeta, ER doctor?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You remind me a lot of him. First of all, because of your just in personality. He's also very like outgoing and spunky like you, but same thing, right? He's a top LinkedIn speaker. He goes, across the country and speaks and gets paid for it and does an incredible job, but is still part of SoMeDocs because he believes in what's being built, and it still helps at the end of the day.
Actually, that's a great question. Could SoMeDocs help launch a paid speaking career?
At the time that this was recorded, we did not have as many options for speakers on SoMeDocs, but nowadays there are various options, including the biggest initiative that we are tackling this year, which is a way for doctors to become better speakers and to actually give them opportunities to speak. So you can check out doctorsonsocialmedia.com and specifically click into the lectures and events section where you can find the conferences that we are putting together. We're building virtual conferences, we're bringing in chairs, we're building ambassador teams, and we're really giving a chance for doctors to shine depending on the topics in which they'd like to build their brands. The beauty of this is important to say. The beauty of this is part of why it's so different than like other speaking spaces, is that we don't take a part of the action, at least not for now. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've built this in a way that facilitates connections, but facilitates connections outside of me. And I think that's what makes it special, is that I promote the doctors, but I don't say, well, now I've got all the goodies, so come to me and book them through me. No, if you're an event and you want to book you, then you book you directly and you don't give any piece of the pie to me. So that to me is really big.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for your time today. This was really fun and a great break from the middle of my workday. The biggest question for me, and this is always, is, so this was true when I started my podcast. I had to decide whether I was going to commit. Now, I will say if you go to Spotify right now and find me, it says every Sunday, but it's never been every Sunday. It's every other Sunday. But I've managed to do six every other Sundays.
Love it.
And the pipeline's on. Now these are not your normal podcasts. These are it's me. It's me. It's audio. I don't even do my face. It's just me audio. Yeah. And by the way, I don't care if anyone listens to them. Listen to that.
That's the best part of it.
I don't care. But I get it out of my head, onto the audio, I post it, and I love it. And that will become the seed that plants for something else. It's going to become something.
That's how everyone should build their brand.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, and by the way, we're in the finishing stages of joining also a podcasting network that is run by a doctor. So that's another thing that's possible to join, and gets discounted if you're a SoMeDocs member, but we're working with them. We're going to be partnering up, so stay tuned for that too, because at some point, if you wish to join like a doctor podcasting network, that's another thing that we're doing.
Well, as I said, the question is, because as joining is fine, it's the commitment, and I wouldn't want to join and then not fully participate.
Totally. And that's up to you. Like the doctor.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm glad we spoke, because then now I know what I'm getting into. It's not
exactly.
I'm not buying something. I'm
and with SoMeDocs, and with SoMeDocs, there's you don't have to commit to anything. You can join and then you can kind of feel things out. The pods, the one thing you have to commit to is if you actively choose to be in the pods. That's a commitment. But if you just choose to join, you choose to join. And again, whenever you're ready, whenever your needs are, I always tell docs, if you don't need the network level, then join for free and just hang out and see what do we develop next, et cetera.
Yeah. Done. Exactly. All right, I've got to run to another meeting. Thank you.
So nice to meet you, and stay in touch.
We will keep in touch. Thanks.
Fantastic.